Oh, what would just give me the biggest jolt of pleasure right now? And this is what society in many ways trains us to calibrate our filter to, with our immediate gratification culture. Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Weapon. I'm here to help you play a bigger game with your life so that you can become a man that you admire. And today we have another episode, probably the second to last episode of the Enter the Omni Game series, where I teach you to look at life like a game to be mastered and won. And at this point, we've covered a lot of the core mechanics of this game. And what we're going to be doing in this one is talking about some of the deeper problems and the higher level play that you get into when you really start practicing what I'm teaching you here. And before we get into it, like always, I got to take a second to tell you to check out my Anabolic Optimism Guide, because this road, I mean, it's kind of easy when you get into it, but it's only easy if you know how to look at things, if you know how to interact with reality. And one of the core parts of that is the mindset. It's your frame. It's the way that you view things happening to you. And my Anabolic Optimism Guide, that's kind of like the super robust version of that, where no matter what happens to you, you're going to be able to embrace a type of optimism that will allow you to grow and thrive. So that's kind of like fundamental to all this sort of stuff. So that's why I created this whole big free guide, and you can go check it out by clicking the link below. All right, so let's get into it here. We've talked about manifestation, right? We've talked about using this claim methodology where you celebrate longing as if manifest, where you think of the thing that you want, you imagine yourself, what would it feel like if I already had that thing? You let that feeling inside of you, you express gratitude for it, and then it's kind of like you just planted a seed in your heart, you just let that unfold into your actions. Right? And it's a way easier way to activate yourself and get yourself to do good things without having to force yourself and use all this dark side energy and all this kind of crap, right? Now, obviously you can run into some problems, which we got into talking about projections, dealing with, maybe things that you aren't actually good for you, but you want, like, that's what fundamentally addicts deal with and all that kind of stuff. But there's other problems too. In particular, what happens when you're trying to manifest something, but every option in front of you feels like a dud? It's like everything you feel, it's like you either got like these metal locked doors that when you touch them with your mind, it's like a clank. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's not interesting. That sucks, whatever. Just clank. Or it's like quicksand, where it's like, if I go over there, well, then I'm going to lose myself in a way that I don't want. So it's like, basically the path of all sorts of hedonism or immediate gratification or that sort of thing. And you'll get into periods of life where you feel like those are the only paths in front of you, stuff that you're just not interested in, or the stuff that maybe emotionally could be compelling, but that's not really where you want to go. It's not going to turn you into someone that you really want to be, right? And what's going on in this situation is that your filter is stopping you. We've all got a filter through which we view our experiences. And depending upon how this filter is calibrated, determines what we resonate with. So you can think of it as like your little internal psychomagnet. It's got like we can program it, okay? And depending on how we program it determines what feels good to us, what feels like a good idea, what motivates us and whatnot. So for example, like if we're going to do it, like if I was going to make an analogy, it's like, imagine you have a metal detector that you can program to different kinds of metal. You can program it to beep when it gets near tin, or beep when it gets near bronze, or beep when it gets near gold, right? We do the same thing with our mind. And I think usually when you're stuck, it's because this filter's tuned to the wrong thing. So some of the ways in which people do this, like the most obvious way, is that it's just tuned to immediate gratification. It's like, what would just give me the biggest jolt of pleasure right now? And this is what society in many ways trains us to calibrate our filter to, with our immediate gratification culture. And, if you struggle with that, well, then you might need to have a bit of a dopamine detox. See my videos on that if that's the case. But it can also be misattuned in a number of different ways. Like maybe you're stuck because you're only thinking about what's going to let me fit in, or what's going to make my mom happy, or what's going to please this super unrealistic perception I have of my ideal, which is miles away from who you actually are right now. It's like there's a bunch of different ways that if you're calibrating your filter in such a way that you're just not going to see any paths forward. And this is a problem, right? Because if you don't have clarity there, well, then what are you going to be able to do? Nothing, really. You're going to have to rely on that dark side energy. You're going to have to rely on force to get yourself to do things, which is the whole goal of the series in many ways, is to get away from that kind of rough, grinding energy where you got to beat yourself up to get yourself to move forward. So what can we do? Well, we got to shift this calibration, okay? And what do we want to calibrate to? Well, we've kind of already covered it. It's the idea of our inherent dignity, okay? And that means that you have to first center yourself. And we've talked about like how you can do that, but to summarize it really quick, it's like, all right, if you really need to center yourself, just think of all the things that you want, good, bad, whatever. Just think about them. Let yourself feel it, feel that desire, and then just start letting go of the specifics of the desire and just hold on to the feeling. Okay. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you have this big ball of desire inside of you that's just burning sort of abstractly. And that's what you want. That's your life force. Your desire is your life force. Like that's what desire is. Desire is the expansion of life. And so just get a big ball of desire going inside of you, detach it from everything, and then love that ball of desire, because that desire is you. It's kind of your essence in many ways. And by doing that, you're really honoring your worth, your inherent dignity as a person, because you say, you know what, no matter how good, how bad, how whatever I am, my desires matter, at least to me. And from there, that dignity of yourself, that primes the filter. That sets the baseline filter that we need to find our path forward. Okay? So that's the first step, is to center yourself in your dignity. The next step, and this is where it starts getting interesting, is we want to find the golden resonance. So what is the golden resonance? Well, it's my term for like intuition, for the way, for following the Holy Spirit, or, you could think of it as running the 80-20 rule of optimizing success, like running that holistically as a recursive function if you're a math person. But this golden resonance is finding that path that resonates most with your centered self. This is something that you're going to be able to feel. So when you center yourself and you think about all your options forward in your life, you're going to see, all right, there are some things that resonate more with this centered person than others. In many ways, it's like tuning into your internal waypoint. Like if we're going to use this video game analogy, in a lot of video games, you have these waypoints. You have like this map marker. You have this arrow that points you in the direction of your objective. Okay? And that's what you have inside of you, as long as you're properly centered. As long as you're running on the right narrative framework, the right moral circuit, then you will always have access to which way you should go. And this is what you need to get good at. And when you start tuning into this part of yourself, your inner knowing, or whatever you want to call it, once you start tuning into this resonance, well, then life really does start feeling like a video game. It starts feeling like this sort of adventure, right? And this is when things really begin to get interesting. So here's a simple example, okay? Like say you want to get in shape, okay? And there's a million different kinds of diet options. There's all these different kinds of workout programs, and you can't find any connection to any of them. They all feel like, this isn't right for me. This isn't whatever. You're getting that clank feeling. Well, if you center yourself, eventually you're going to find that, some of these are definitely not right for me. Maybe before you're considering them, but it was just like, bros say you gotta deadlift and you gotta, do intermittent fasting and blah, blah, blah. And like, maybe that just doesn't appeal to you. Maybe you just don't want to do that kind of thing. Maybe what you want to do is you want to eat carnivore and row in a kayak or something like that. I don't know, but like it's giving yourself the permission to follow unique pathways, to follow wherever that thing takes you. Like for me, when I got out of college, I got a software engineering degree because that's what I went to school for. And like 3 months in, I could just feel it. I was grinding against something deep inside of me. I was grinding against my authentic resonance. This golden resonance was not leading me there. It was leading me elsewhere. It was leading me toward some kind of self-development work. And I didn't feel like I could do it. I was afraid. I was worried. But I took the plunge, and it's been the best thing I could have ever done. And so this leads us into really the challenge of following this internal waypoint, is that sometimes it takes you somewhere scary. Sometimes it feels like it's taking you over a cliff with no clarity at all. You just know what it's leading you away from. It's leading you out into some unknown expanse. And I call this unknown expanse the ether. All right. If I was going to bring back an analogy from one of my previous videos, we have the causality matrix, right? We got this big tapestry of everything that has been, and it's all been woven into some finite actuality. And then the loom of of time, of the present moment, it takes all these chaotic strands of potential that are spiraling off into the future, and the present moment weaves them into actuality, right? So in the future, we just got all these different threads of activity, all these different patterns of things that could be. And the ether are all those threads of potential that we don't know, that we can't we don't have any visibility on them. And it's in the ether that there is monsters, there's treasure, there is adventure, there is horror, there is hardship, there is breakthrough, there is joy, there's everything. It's, it's chaos. It's the Petersonian chaos motif, okay? And sometimes that's the direction that your internal resonance, your golden resonance will take you. That arrow will point you right into a big old blind spot. And this can be quite honestly terrifying. I know it's been for me a lot because I try to literally religiously follow this feeling. And yeah, sometimes it can be downright horrifying where it's going to take you. But it always has paid off, at least so far. But there are some tricks that we can do to get ourselves to follow it, all right? The first thing that we can do is to embrace an attitude of adventure. It's about getting curious to see what will happen. That curiosity, that interest, that's what takes you from what you know into what you don't know. And the reason why you're stuck in anything, the reason why maybe you can't manifest is because you don't have a clear path forward, meaning what you know is not enough, right? So it's a knowledge problem. Manifestation issues are a lot of the time, they are just knowledge issues. It's just you don't know the better way to look at it. You don't have the information. You don't have the perspective. You don't have the experience. You don't have the whatever to get that next juicy node that you can use to manifest. And so what you have to do is you got to find a big old blob of chaos, and you got to kick it, and you got to see what happens. And this is really what ether mining is. It's this idea of going and finding some blobs of chaotic potential and poking them and seeing what the hell pops out. This is the only way to get unstuck when you're practicing this kind of thing. When you're practicing radiant manifestation, as I've been teaching you in this series, is that if you don't have any good path in front of you, you don't have any path that feels like it's really vibing with this golden resonance, well, then you got to find something that, seems uncertain, poke it, see what happens. So what does this mean practically? Okay. So say you're trying to find a better job, say you hate your current job and your golden resonance, your intuition is pulling you to go somewhere else, but you have no idea where else. Everything that you think about it, it's like, I don't want to do that. But maybe there's some areas that seem more interesting. There's some chaotic blobs. All right. And these chaos nodes, or whatever you want to call them, these chaos nodes, they maybe it's in the direction of, let's say, social work, I don't know, public speaking. I don't know, pick a thing. You have some area that has a little bit more interest. It's like when you calibrate, you center yourself and you think about the different options. All right, the things over in social work, that kind of resonates with me. It's not like a strong gong of a bell, but it's more than other directions. So what does that mean? Well, you walk over to that big blob and you poke it and you see what the hell pops out of it. And practically speaking, that means do a little research, do a little searching, okay? Entertain some ideas, brainstorm. And then out of everything that pops out, there's going to be either nothing, and so that means you got to find another pocket of chaos to kick, or you're going to get an idea, you're going to get a lead, and then you can follow that lead to the next step, and maybe that takes you to more chaos, and you got to slap some more chaos, and you get, more leads. And it's just following the arrow, following the waypoint, and this takes you on an adventure. And as long as you accept that you're always going to get to where you want to go and you're willing to be patient and ride the ride, it works. It's pretty amazing. You don't need to force anything. That's the thing, is like, does the oak tree need to force itself to grow? No. Okay? And so anytime you're relying on forcing yourself, usually it's just not going to work. The real natural path to growth and evolution is by following this golden resonance. And just like all good adventures, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, there's going to be everything in between. But what's amazing is that you can play this game on the macro and the micro level. So maybe on the macro level, your adventure is taking you down, like for me, it's taking me down this path of content creation. Okay, that's what I'm doing. But then on the micro level, day to day, my moment to moment decisions are, some are more resonant than others. Some align more to this golden resonance than others. And it goes from like that miniature sort of set modality that we covered in the last video, where like every flow state is an opportunity to cycle up, toward a higher goal, or cycle down and devolve. And it's like you just got to add up those sets of flow toward the high level goals, and you're going to be making progress. It's just that, you don't get the full picture at once. And usually, even if you think you've got the full picture, maybe you got some big long-term vision, big long-term goal, the path to there is going to be way different than you think it is. Rarely does anyone have like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to look like this, and then that's what happens. That almost never happens. Like there's always going to be something new that you experience. And yet, sometimes there's going to be monsters on your adventures, and that's why I taught you guys how to deal with projections. That's what the monsters are. It's like, me, when I first quit my job, well, my projections were like, I put my worth on the opinions of other people. So like, what will my mom think about this? Or what will my friends think about this? Or, what will, at the time, I don't even think we were engaged yet. I think we were, maybe. Either engaged or almost engaged, but my now wife, it's like, what's she going to think about me if I just quit this, stable computer science job and go try and be a life coach? Like, right? So these fears would come up inside of me, these anxieties would come up inside of me, and I had to learn how to deal with them. Those were my monsters. And some paths have more monsters than others, but monsters are pretty much always guarding some kind of treasure, as long as you're willing to see the opportunity for growth. And that's, what my whole anabolic optimism guide is about. So that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. I hope you found this useful. I hope you start following this internal compass and you use the stuff I've already taught you to let it go, to let it actually happen. Because I don't think you can actually live this way without the other stuff that I taught you, unless you're just kind of like a natural, which I guess there are some people like that. But, slight word of warning, it's not going to really work if your dopaminergic health is crap. Like, you can't smoothly and effortlessly follow the golden resonance if you're addicted to something that's dysfunctional. So if you're addicted to porn, you're addicted to video games, you're addicted to drugs, alcohol, whatever, sex, it's not really going to work, because anytime you try and do that authentic thing, all of a sudden this little, demon on your shoulder is going to try and, put his hooks into you and pull you down to a different direction. And so check out my sexual self-mastery series or my Man of Action series if you're dealing with that kind of stuff, or if you got more serious substance abuse issues or that kind of thing. Obviously, you got to get different help there, and I hope you get it. But because breaking free from that lets you live a life that is so much better. It lets you live a life where you're living passionately. All right, that's what I have for you guys. Play big. I'll see you in the next one. Also, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. I always forget to say that. Just do that. Peace.